Hey everyone, Michael here, co-founder of Studicata. In this video, I want to shake things up a little bit. I know most of our viewers are here for our substantive law lectures, and I promise we're going to have a ton of contracts videos and evidence videos coming up here in the pipeline. I think we have like 20 or 30 videos scheduled that are going to be coming out over the next several weeks. So stay tuned, more substantive law lectures are coming, but I did want to take a very quick break from the substantive law and talk about something because it is that time of year where across the country, thousands, hundreds of thousands of students are graduating from college with their undergraduate degrees. I know a lot of these students are going to be wondering what to do next with their lives, and perhaps some of these students will consider law school as an option. So I wanted to address this, maybe give some input here. Having worked for several years now in bar exam preparation, I have the opportunity to work with thousands, or I've had the opportunity to work with thousands of recent law school graduates. And you know, when you're working with students who are coming right out of law school, right, I have the unique perspective of seeing a large range on the spectrum. Some students who are extremely excited about graduating, who are looking forward to practicing law. And on the other end of that spectrum, you see a lot of students who seem to kind of regret their decision, are a little bit miserable, are not looking forward to practicing law, especially not looking forward to the bar exam. And then of course you see everything in between, right? So what I want to talk about here is maybe some of the differences I see between these students, because obviously if you're considering whether or not to go to law school, if you're going to spend, anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000 to go to law school, you want to be in the group, right, of students who are extremely happy and excited with their decision and are ready to go practice law with vigor, right? You don't want to be in that group that's just spent $100,000 to $200,000 that's miserable with their decision. That's an awful situation to be in. So for me, right, if I'm looking at this, I think there's obviously going to be a million reasons to not go to law school, right? And this is cited over a million times by, ask any lawyer, any law student whether you should go to law school, and you're gonna hear the same things over and over and over again. And it's all true, right? Law school is extremely difficult and it's extremely expensive, and there's no guarantees, right? It's a very simple risk-reward equation, right? If you were a computer looking at this completely analytically, you'd have to be crazy to go to law school, right? It's extremely difficult, it's extremely expensive, and even if you get through it all, there's no guarantee on the end that you're even going to get gainful employment. And from my experience, one thing that people don't even talk about, but I think is worth noting, right? Since I work in bar exam preparation, okay, so yeah, it's difficult to get into law school. It's difficult to do well in law school. It's difficult to find a job. But it's also, in 2019, extremely difficult to pass the bar exam. Just look at the pass rates this last February. In California, we had a 31% pass rate. That is staggering. And that means if you're taking the February bar exam, the majority of those students are retakers. They've already failed it once. That means most of those students are now failing it the second time around. That's brutal, right? You've gone through law school, you have your JD, right? And now you're taking the bar exam. You have to pass the bar exam to get a job, to practice law, right? And only 31% were able to do that on their second try. It's completely brutal, right? So every aspect of being a lawyer is difficult. And even if you get through it all, it's not like being a lawyer is a cakewalk either. It's a very high demand, very stressful job. It's not like some jobs out there, and we've all worked, clock in, clock out type jobs, right? Where you come in, the jobs themselves are usually terrible. Like if you're just gonna be a waiter or in retail, whatever, right? But at least you punch in and you punch out. You come in, you do your 8 hours, and then you go home, and you don't have to think about it, right? You get to leave. That's the nature of punch in, punch out employment. Being an attorney, it follows you. Your job follows you everywhere you go, right? It's like you can't ever escape it. There's never actually a true vacation as an attorney because you've always got clients, you've always got the next thing coming up. So like I said, million reasons to not do it, right? We could just keep going and going, and I could tell all of the horrible, stories that I've seen, and trust me, they're out there. So I don't want to pour it on though. And I will say this is the caveat though, and it's a very important caveat to make. Again, in 2019, everything is hard, everything is difficult, everything is competitive. You want to be an engineer, a doctor, you want to work in finance, you want to be an auto mechanic. Being an auto technician is difficult in 2019. I mean, everything is hard, right? Everything has gotten more competitive. There's no such thing as a career where it's just going to be a ton of money, you're going to have a lot of security, it's not going to be much work. You know, you can just kind of sign up, you know, clock in, clock out, no competition, you just make a ton of money. Like, that doesn't exist. Everything is difficult, everything has challenges. So yes, law school is very hard, being a lawyer is very hard, passing the bar exam, getting all of the necessary requirements, right? All of that is very hard, don't get me wrong. But so is everything else. I mean, it's not like there's just anything out there that's really easy to do. You can go just have a great career and make a ton of money without working hard. So it is a worthwhile caveat to make in defense of the students who go to law school. It's not like there's just a ton of options out there. So with all of that said, right, so a million reasons not to go. What do I think are good reasons to go? Well, I think there's only one reason that you should go to law school, and it's the most important thing you can do. If you're considering law school, what I would say you need to do is step one, sit down and identify in an articulable way what it is about practicing law that excites you. And if there's nothing about practicing law that excites you, don't go to law school. It is not going to be a good decision. This idea that you can get a JD and use that in another field, right? I mean, maybe, but it's a horrible thought process, right? Or this idea that you're just gonna go to law school and build all of these skills, right? You're gonna come out of it and know how to be super persuasive and win every argument you get into, and that'll help you get another job. Like, trust me, all you do in law school, really, you spend 90% of your time reading cases. I mean, you're just reading a bunch. If you wanted to learn how to argue or be persuasive, there's better, buy a book, right? Don't spend $100,000 or $200,000 to try to learn how to be persuasive. It's absurd, right? So if you're going to go to law school, you should go with the intention to practice law, right? So you want to make sure that you're excited to practice law before you go, right? So that's my 2 cents, right? What I would do if I were graduating and I was doing it all over again and I was thinking about law school, I would really look for something articulable about the practice of law that excites me. And if I couldn't find that, I wouldn't go, right? Or if I even found something but I wasn't sure, right, then I would do even more research. So what you really need to do, so okay, you're like, yeah, I've seen courtroom TV shows, you know, being in the courtroom is something that excites me. I know that's what I want to do, I'm passionate about it, right? The question would be, have you ever been to a courtroom? Are you certain being in the courtroom is what excites you? Because I hear this a lot, right? Students are like, oh, I definitely want to be litigating. I want to be in the courtroom, dazzling jurors with my amazing arguments. And it's like, that's fine and great. There are people who love litigating and being in the courtroom, but I would make sure you fully know what that entails. And it is something you truly love. Have you ever been to a courtroom? I would go to a courtroom and watch, you know. You'll see it's very procedural. There's a lot of decorum. You're gonna have a lot of evidentiary rules that's not gonna allow you to do everything you might wanna do, right? And if you mess something up, what's gonna happen? The judge is going to scold you and make you feel about this small in front of the whole courtroom, in front of your client, in front of opposing counsel. It usually can be traumatic, and it's going to be very high stakes. It's nerve-wracking. You know, you wanna really make sure, you know, and there's a type of person that loves that and wants to do it. And if you're that type of person, great, go for it. But if you're not, you know, you want to verify that before you spend $100,000 or $200,000, whatever it is, to go to law school. Nothing worse than taking on $200,000 of debt to realize what you thought you wanted to do is something you actually hate. So all of this is to say, right, whatever it is, whatever that aspect of being a lawyer potentially excites you, I would really research that and verify that. Go out, talk to attorneys, intern at a law firm, see what a lawyer actually does. Because if our assumption is everything is hard, right? In 2019, nothing is given to anyone. If you want anything in this world, you're going to have to work really hard for it. Then you might as well do something that you're excited about, that brings you enjoyment. Because if you're just doing it for the money, right? You want to cut those fat lawyer paychecks. That's the only reason you're going to law school. I'm telling you, in the end, right? It might not be when you first get out. It might take 2 years, it might take 5 years, it might take 10 years. Eventually, if you hate practicing law and you're there for the money, it's gonna end badly. I've seen it over and over. Even if you're that top 1%, you do everything perfect. You perfect score the LSAT, you go to the best law school in the country, you graduate #1 in your class, you get the most coveted first-year associate position at the biggest law firm in New York, you're getting a $250,000 salary right out of law school, whatever crazy salaries they're paying graduates nowadays, right? If you hate practicing law, eventually it's going to catch up to you. You're going to be miserable, right? At a big law firm like that, they're going to require minimum, right? You're an asset. You have to earn your salary in billable hours or they're going to fire you. And usually that means you need to bill at least 2,000 hours a year, maybe more. And that's billable hours. Do the math there, guys. That's 5 to 6 hours. Billable hours every single day, 7 days a week, 365 days, you need to be billing 5 to 6 hours. That doesn't include all of the non-billable work you're also doing. If there's not something about that that brings you joy, excitement, right, some aspect that gives you self-fulfillment, it's going to be a miserable road for you, right? This pressure you're going to put yourself through. Again, this isn't a clock in, clock out situation. This is something that's going to live with you every single day. You know, so if there's not that thing, something about it that brings you excitement, even if you're making all the money in the world, I promise you, there's a reason that lawyers have, you know, and I hate to talk about it, but you know, the depression and suicide rates, all of that stuff with lawyers is higher than in some other professions. It's because of the nature of practicing law. It's so stressful, so high stakes, there's so much involved, you rarely get breaks. If there's not something about it that you love, I'm telling you, it's probably going to end bad. And that's saying that everything goes perfect. You get the most coveted job out there, right? Imagine the flip side. If we're just playing the numbers game where you don't get everything, where you hit road bumps, where you fail the bar exam, or you don't get the best grades, or you know, whatever it is, you know, it takes you 6 months to land gainful employment. You have to go on 100 job interviews before someone takes you, right? The road bumps, right? If you don't love it, and on top of all of this, you're going through all of these bumps along the way, and on top of all of that, right? The bank doesn't care. Whoever your creditor is, whoever you took that loan from to go to law school, they don't care whether or not you pass the bar exam. They don't care whether or not you have a job as an attorney. They don't care whether you like your job or not. They're going to come for their money, right? And they're going to be relentless. You can't get away from that debt no matter what you do. You file bankruptcy, you try to assign, you try to transfer it. That student debt will follow you for life. You can't get rid of it. Right, so it's a huge decision. Like I said, there's a million reasons to not go to law school, you know, and it's all cited so well. You can ask any attorney, right, and everyone will tell you all the same stuff. Yeah, we know it's all really difficult. The recessionary effect on the employment market has been rough. Getting a job is difficult. And I mean, what I think about too, just working in bar exam preparation, is look at pass rates. Passing the bar exam is not a gimme. There are a lot of people who go to law school who spend $100,000, $200,000 who never pass the bar exam. You know, and I know everyone goes to law school and says, oh, that won't be me, that won't be me. There's a percentage of people it's going to be. So, you know, like I said, it's a million reasons not to go. If a computer was looking at it and a computer did the risk reward, I think a computer would say you have to be crazy to go to law school, right? Now, the flip side to all of it is we're not computers, we're human beings. So where I would say you can trump all of the reasons to not go is if you need to be a lawyer. If there's something about the practice of law that brings you vigor, that brings you excitement, that brings you a self-fulfillment that no other profession will bring you. Because again, if everything is hard, you might as well do something that brings you some fulfillment. And I'm telling you, the law profession is of such a nature that it's not something you want to do if you hate it. It's not a clock in, clock out type job. It's not something you can take a break from very easily, even if you go on a vacation, right? I mean, it never really leaves. There's always something to be done, right? So you need some enjoyment there. I know I'm dragging it on, guys. That would be my 2 cents on the matter. The last thing I'll say is a disclaimer though, ultimately, going to law school, not going to law school is a huge decision. I would never presume to know you well enough to give you any kind of advice. Please do not view this video as advice. This is just my thoughts on the matter. You can take with it what you want. Ultimately, no one knows you better than you. And anytime you have a life decision that's this big, you have to do the research and come to your own decision. Do not let me influence you in any way. It's just my 2 cents on the matter. I would say, you know, if you're going to go for it, I would try at minimum to find that thing about the practice of law that excites you and verify that it is what you think it is. If it's being in the courtroom that excites you, I would make sure that actually being in the courtroom is what you think it is. If you want to work at the DA's office and be a prosecutor and put scumbags behind bars, like that's what you're passionate about, I would go try to talk to some people that work at the DA's office and see what it's really about. You know, if it's being in a nonprofit, you know, I would look at, you know, a lot of times nonprofits, the job prospects are super low. Most nonprofits can't afford taking on boatloads of lawyers. Those can be very hard jobs to get. You know, I would research all of that stuff so you know going in, right? So that's that, guys. With that though, I'll get out of it. You know, I could go on and on about whether or not to go to law school, but I know you guys got a lot going on. Just do your research, find that thing that you think excites you. If you know after you've done your research that being a lawyer, there's some aspect that's gonna bring you fulfillment like no other job is, then go for it. Being a lawyer can be one of the most rewarding professions out there. I don't wanna dream kill anyone. So with that, guys, I'll leave you all to it. I'll see you at our next video.